Few people know the true start of the American Revolution, when the actual fighting started. A lot of people think it was Lexington and Concord. No, it was actually the Worcester Revolt in 1774 in Massachusetts, which occurred 9 months before the fighting at Lexington and Concord. This was the true start of the American Revolution. So, what began? Why did it begin? Revolts in rural Massachusetts that took place as a result of the passage of the Massachusetts Government Act, which was from the British Crown, basically. This was part of the Coercive Acts. So that was an act of, the Coercive Acts were a collection of acts in response to the Boston Tea Party of December 1773. So this is in September now, about 9 months later in 1774. So the colonists called it the Intolerable Acts. The British called it the Coercive Acts. We're going to coerce the colonies and the colonists to do as we want them to. Of course, it didn't work out that way because people really had balls back then. The Boston Port Act, which was part of the Coercive or Intolerable Acts, shut down Boston Harbor. But this did not affect the average person in Massachusetts countryside, where the majority of the population lived. This is an important point I'd actually like to bring up today. One of the reasons people are more controlled today is because more people live in urban or even suburban areas and are dependent upon urban areas, even though they live in the suburbs, for their livelihood. In other words, people back in the times of the colonies were self-sufficient people that lived in the country. They were farmers. It's like they weren't beholden to some corporate employer or something like that. They weren't. That's just how it was. What the British Crown did through the Massachusetts Government Act, which was part of the Coercive Act, they placed a military governor in charge of the state and called for the royal appointment of all government officials and virtually shut down all self-government. Now, this is really where it gets a little more juicy here. Citizens of the Massachusetts have been governing themselves for 150 years. So it's not, a lot of people don't realize how long the colonies were an ongoing free enterprise zone. Maybe that's what you want to call it, even though they're part of the British Crown. It took months for one sailing ship to get to the colonies. It wasn't like they were linked. Today you could be on the other side of the world and you're closer than you were between New York and Massachusetts, even with the modern transportation we have. Back then, being separated by an ocean was a big deal. So Massachusetts and the Northeast, all the colonies were governing themselves for 150 years. In rural Massachusetts, the state courts were the primary government bodies that had contact with the average person. So, in other words, when the king appointed somebody, there's a money angle to this whole thing. And really, this is what it comes down to with revolutions, really. It usually is a money angle. Alarm spread through 95% of the Massachusetts citizens who lived in the rural areas, who feared that a royally appointed official would mistreat them. Here's the money angle coming up. Creditors posed a constant threat to the livelihood of farmers. But when the courts were filled with locally elected judges, the farmers could breathe easy because the judges could be thrown out at the next election. When you had royally appointed officials, they felt that justifiably, the local population felt a very real threat that these judges would allow their creditors to foreclose on them. And obviously, who's going to be behind issuing a credit. It would be coming from the UK. It would be all connected to the judges, and it'd be a way to get rid of the people that own all these farms and buy them out for pennies on a dollar, which is things that happen today and have happened in the past and after the war between, after the Revolutionary War. It happened after the war between the states. Basically, when you have crony capitalist type judges, they'll work for the bad people, the money-connected people. They work against the citizenry to deprive them of the fruits of their labor. This was a very real fear in the times of the colonies. So the creditors would be connected to the powers, and the judge would be connected to the powers. And it's almost like, you're late on one payment, we'll take in your farm. Thank you, goodbye. It's really what they would be doing. They were justified in this fear because this has happened so many times throughout history. It's a racket. It's just how things work. So the Crown-appointed officials arrived at the opening of the courts in Berkshire County. 1,500 Massachusetts militia members showed up and stopped the court from opening. The same thing occurred in Springfield, Massachusetts, 2 weeks later. And Springfield, Massachusetts is where arms are produced today, right? Springfield, Massachusetts Armory. Although Massachusetts is practically communist, but the tradition goes all the way back to the 1770s and prior, 150 years prior. So on September 2nd, 1774, 4,000 patriots forced the lieutenant governor to resign in Cambridge, Massachusetts, when a rumor spread that some patriots were killed by British soldiers. Tens of thousands of Massachusetts patriots began to march to Boston. The incident, called the powder alarm, forced General Howe to reconsider his options. What are you going to do now? Anyway, nobody's got balls today, though. That's the thing. They live in homeowners associations, gated communities, property owners association. They call people up to mow their lawn and trim their trees. They're the laziest bunch of... And these are conservatives, too. I mean, what is a conservative? That's a joke. It's a dumb word. September 6, 1774. When the 25 royal officials arrived at Worcester, nearly 5,000 mostly unarmed civilians, mostly unarmed but pissed off, were in town, greeted them in a town of 250 people. So the town had 250 people, but 5,000 people showed up to greet these 25 royal officials. Hey, how you doing? The militia had taken over the courthouse, and the officials were escorted to the tavern, where they were forced to resign their positions. Now, they were taken to the beer hall, the tavern, the whiskey hall, where all meetings should be done, right? Tavern, where the Marine Corps was born. The officials were then made to walk through the throng of protesters towards the courthouse, reciting their renouncements of their positions over and over again along the way. General Gage's troops were nowhere near to be seen, so the British guys were nowhere around to protect their appointees. Oh well. A similar revolt took place in every single county in Massachusetts outside of Boston in the fall of 1774. This is basically when, the colonies were independent-minded British citizens. Well, those are the type that fight back. They got the balls to do it. It was these revolts that truly ended British rule in the colony and opened the door for citizens to form their own government. The fighting at Lexington and Concord were merely the British government trying to get its lost authority back. They already lost their authority. And, actually, when we're talking about this, I know a lot of times they romanticize in these paintings. They got George Washington on his horse and everybody's in uniform. I don't think, they didn't have photography back then. They had people painting, and they idealized things. They romanticized things. They romanticized the way the battles looked. Actually, when in the 1860s, during the war between the states, they actually had photography. It woke people up to how horrible things were. But also, really the reality of it was most people that were revolutionaries probably didn't have formal uniforms. They might have pieces of uniforms. Somebody could be dressed as an average, ordinary day citizen. Maybe there could be one thing that shows that he's part of the revolutionary effort. So, and that goes to show you today, were these people professional soldiers? You don't need to be. I tell you right now, most people, even when they go in today's military, you would not believe. You know why Americans' military is so great today? Because the citizens have, most of the people that go in the military today, maybe not all, but most, a good portion of them, have a lot of familiarity with rifles and weapons and things. They've been doing maybe the shooting since they're 14 or 10 years old or 5 or whatever, with adult supervision, of course. But, when they get in there, they actually wind up using the weapon less than, you know, they were probably in the civilian life. They were really trained prior to the civilian life. There's no doubt that a person, like you look in World War II, Audie Murphy, he was given a single bullet by his mother to get his meal. If he missed, he didn't get food for dinner. He'd starve. He was a very good shot. Now, obviously, he was the most decorated, you know, he turned out to be the most decorated war hero in World War II. But really, did the Army train him? No, it wasn't really the Army that trained him. Maybe he learned some things about some other, you know, higher tech weapons, but his training was from when he was, you know, 8 years old on, or whatever the heck he started when he picked up a rifle. And this is the case with the American revolutionaries. And this is why, you know, if they start taking away, you know, Second Amendment rights, which, remember, the American revolutionaries didn't have a Second Amendment. Remember that? They didn't have a Second Amendment, did they? You know, that's just why these people go, oh, the Second Amendment says, well, suppose there is none. So what? We don't listen to you jackasses. That's really what it comes down to. And really, the reality of it is that, you know, the American revolutionaries were, they're, you know, the British called them a ragtag band or whatever, you know, but hey, it doesn't matter what the hell you call us. It was a matter of that, you know, us together with the French, and I, you know, somebody mentioned this on another video of mine. Yeah, I'm very much aware that the French, wasn't for the French, there'd be no America today. I'm not anti-French. You know, I'm not anti-France in the least. Not me personally. I know some Americans are, because de Gaulle wanted to get his gold back rightfully when they cut off the doors for, you know, for exchanging gold for dollars. I remember that when Nixon did that, and all of a sudden the French are our enemies now. The French are not our enemies. I love the French. The French are great. The women are great. Everything else, you know, as Trump would say, they're really great people. Anyway, Trump, I don't give a crap. Trump, I don't even know why I'm bringing his name up. I don't know what Trump would be doing in this. He'd probably be playing WWF, you know, or something. But, you know, I don't think he'd be out there shooting a rifle. He's got bone spurs. He's not a bad guy, but he's not the best. But, you know, it took a lot of balls to do this type of stuff. You know, it's like colonists said, to hell, we're not putting up with this crap. They were smart enough to fear that their livelihood was going to be directly affected, and you know what? They went balls to the wall, and they just let them have it. Oh, well. You know, I always got plan, you know, I don't just have plan A. I got plan B, I got plan C, D, E, F, G, and I'm never going to say what they are, but there's a lot of old blikes in the left field and right field things I could do. I'm a very shrewd person. And, you know, right now, I'm spreading the word out here on YouTube. You know, I'm taking another angle. I know I do a lot of different videos on this channel, a lot of different subjects. You know, maybe people didn't like me doing too much with the Confederate videos. Well, I'm doing a little more with the American Revolution. Not only am I in the Sons of Confederate Veterans, I'm in the Sons of American Revolution, and I'm in the Sons of Italy. One of these days, we're going to start doing things on Rome and Italy. So I want people to remind people that independent spirit, an indistinguishable spirit of, you know, the individual. The individual is the minority of one, and that's whose rights are protected, not granted by the Constitution, but legally protected by the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights. Now here I'm actually showing a later scout, and this would be a scout of the Confederacy who fought for independence also. So, just want to bring this out. You know, a lot of people, you know, we talk to all this stuff. You know, right now, I have a lot of fun with these politicians that, you know, talk the way they do, because the sweeter they talk, I also use that as, I also think of them as, that's how they talk really sweet to 5- and 6-year-old children, because there's something wrong with them, you know what I mean? Like Joe Biden, right? And, you know, they could say that's not true, but you know what? It's freaking true as the sun coming up every day in the morning, okay? Some of the stuff that they don't let you talk about on the airwaves, it's true as anything. So, I'm not here to freaking talk around it. I'm here to freaking talk right at it. Now, I could say a lot more, but, you know, you got limits of what you hell you could say on here. So, you know, I just want to leave it at that. But let's just say that, you know, the colonists were very astute and perceptive as to what was going on, and they didn't put up with it. You know? Any politicians that policies promise you, oh, it'll never do happen like this, tell them to go to hell, man. You know? Give them a rake, give them a shovel, go tell them to get a real job. I'm a servant of you to protect you, the people. You know, I ever see that? Even my conservative congressman originally from West Virginia. I'm in Florida. I think he's really from West Virginia. He says, "I'm your servant." You know, my servant, you yo-yo, you're parasite. You're another parasite. Every single one of you are parasites. All of you are parasites. Every single one of you are parasites. I don't need you. I don't care about you. I don't give a crap about you at all. And, you know, I'm not here to play the game of just, I'm going through the authorities because the authorities are the authorities. Yeah, go to hell. I'm really sick of these jerks, man. Roll away. And, you know, I'm not even thinking about, you know, revolution or anything like that. I'm just thinking about freedom. And I'm not thinking about, I'm going to revolt against these guys. I basically ignore them. I know Google algorithms try to ignore me, but maybe that don't work all the time, but who the hell cares? You know, who the hell cares? By the way, you know, we'll see what's going on. We got some more things coming up here, and we're going to get some more Harley-Davidson videos coming up here pretty soon. You know, I'm going to take some more angles and different approaches on things. I don't think a lot of people do, because a lot of times people are either in one thing or they're in another thing. Me, I'm into everything under the sun. And, you know, that's my angle. It's like, there's never going to be one subject on this channel, ever. And for now, I figured to lay off some of the Confederate stuff right now, but you know what? You know, people are already conditioned about that garbage. They're brainwashed about it. I know that the next attack will be on, oh, this nation was evil when it was formed. Yeah, right. Tell me another one. You know, that'll be the next game. So I'm going to bring out some more stuff about the American Revolution, really, what was going on back then. You know, people were very perceptive that, you know, the crown-appointed judges would be all connected with the creditors that owned some piece of the farms of the colonists in Massachusetts. And, you know, anytime they were a little late on a payment, they would foreclose on them and grab all their land and steal everything from them, because these were crony-appointed, you know, crown-appointed cronies, same thing, judges that were going to be hooked in with the creditors. Hey, you wanted some loan? You want a loan? Yeah, sure. I'm sure whatever kind of freaking, you know, one bad harvest and 20 years work in your farm and you're gone. You're out of everything you ever did for your whole entire life. And some crook gets it. That's basically what they did after the war between the states. That's happened quite often. That's even happened in urban areas in New Jersey, where there's casinos and somebody needed land. Not to mention any of the other names. Nobody's a hero that's a politician. Guarantee you that. Nobody. That's why our government was theoretically, it's not like our government's good. It's just that we need this. There's a necessary evil up to a certain point. The whole point of what kind of government we were supposed to have originally was extremely limited, extremely weak, with each branch watching the other branch. As a matter of fact, most of our government today is created by executive order. The Patriot Act, which came about as a result of 9/11, is one of the most heinous acts going. There should have, and, you know, quite obviously, you know what went on with that. I mean, you have to be an idiot, because everybody's keeping their mouths shut in New York, even the cops and the firemen, and they don't say nothing. They don't say nothing. That's why I call everybody a worm today. I don't care about them. I don't give a crap about them at all. And, but, you know, the colonies were right. You know, they were proactive. They were proactive. And they fought back before it became a problem. But once, you know, in other words, Lexington and Concord came after, many months after the original shooting, which happened at the Worcester Revolt in Massachusetts. But that Lexington and Concord was the British trying to get control back. They already lost control. That's why when you got an opportunity to go for the jugular, go for it, baby. Yeah. So anyway, we're going to have some other videos coming up probably tomorrow, probably on the Harley-Davidson. I'll be taking a ride tonight, flying my Confederate flag on my back. And, you know, fight the power. That's all I got to say. Over and out.